Hey, just a brief discussion about patellar tendinitis and inflammation. As I mentioned earlier, the term patellar tendinitis was changed some time ago to patellar tendinopathy. The reason being that researchers failed to find any inflammation in patients with patellar tendinitis. So since this inflammation myth is still quite popular, let me explain the facts in a little more detail. What the microscope tells us about patellar tendinitis. Approaching the matter scientifically, as we do as everything in this book, to say that something is inflamed means that we should be able to find some hard evidence of inflammation. Without getting too caught up in details, inflammation can be broken down into two general patterns, acute and chronic. Here's the difference. Acute inflammation is the immediate and early response to tissue injury. It comes on quick but lasts for minutes, hours, or a few days. Neutrophils are the major kind of cells that are involved in acute inflammation. Now, chronic inflammation, more like long-term, is inflammation of prolonged duration such as weeks or months. Some of the major types of cells that are involved in chronic inflammation include macrophages, lymphocytes, and plasma cells. Now, it's not important for you to know all these different types of cells, although you may be interested to know that a lot of them are simply different kinds of white blood cells. What is important to know, however, is that these are exactly the kind of cells you should be able to find in people with patellar tendinitis if the muscle or tendon is indeed inflamed, since these cells are directly involved in the inflammatory process. Throughout time, however, the vast majority of studies have failed to find any. For instance, here's a few of them from the published literature where researchers have taken a piece of the patellar tendon in people with patellar tendinitis and analyzed it. So here's these studies, and here's what they find. The histological findings: no inflammatory cells, no inflammatory cells, no acute inflammatory cells. As you can see from the above table, it doesn't look like researchers have reported finding any of the cells that are directly involved in the inflammatory process. Therefore, without some cellular proof of an inflammatory response, one has no basis to accurately say that there is indeed inflammation when one has patellar tendinitis. The evidence just isn't there. Unfortunately, even though these and many more studies have been out for literally years, the information hasn't seemed to have gotten around like it should. So beware of using anti-inflammatory creams or any other treatments whose purpose is to get rid of inflammation in your knee that simply isn't there. So the point, inflammation does not appear to be a major feature of patellar tendinitis, especially in patients that have been suffering with this condition for many months. Okay, so don't treat the inflammation. What have they found? Well, on the other hand, research have consistently found when taking a piece of the patellar tendon and looking under a microscope, there are signs of failed tendon healing. So this is what they do find. Here are the three most common findings: disrupted and disorganized collagen fibers. Collagen is a major ingredient that makes up your connective tissues and is having a hard time coming together properly in the tendon. Fibroblastic proliferation. Fibroblasts work like a construction crew to make connective tissue. We see a lot of these little guys, some abnormal, floating around the tendons of patellar tendinitis sufferers. So they're obviously looking for work. Vascular proliferation. Lots of blood vessels, many of which are abnormal and immature, are found in the area, a sign that tendon healing is trying to take place. So basically, patellar tendinitis is not an inflammatory process. It's basically a failed healing process. So you don't want to treat the inflammation, you want to treat the failed healing.